Every December, there's that last week or so of the year when I'm off from work, home with the family, and the days just kind of blend into one another. Is it Tuesday? Friday? Does it even matter? At any rate, this past December, during that week of being restless and chronologically challenged, I did what a lot of people do to pass the time. I turned to Netflix, and that's when I got the surprise of the holiday season. There on my TV screen, Netflix listed its top 10 most popular TV programs for the week. And in that week's top 10, nestled alongside established crowd pleasers like The Crown and Young Sheldon, were not one, but two programs consisting of nothing more than footage of fires burning in fireplaces. No dialogue, no plot, just very well-filmed, high-definition video of crackling fireplaces in action. And apparently, a hell of a lot of viewers seeking out their cozy ambiance. Put simply, I had to learn more. I'm David Peterkovsky, and this is Pop Comforts, a podcast series that explores the unexpected corners of popular culture that bring us comfort. The popular videos in question are part of a series of Fireplace videos called, appropriately enough, Fireplace for Your Home. They've been around for well over a decade now, and to be clear, I, as a connoisseur of the comfort arts, was no stranger to them. On more than one occasion, members of my family have caught me playing the videos on our TV while diligently working from home. As for the videos themselves, you might be surprised by the variety offered in the Fireplace for Your Home series. In addition to the classic edition of Fireplace for Your Home, there's the newer Birchwood edition. Those are the two I saw running hot on the Netflix Top 10. There are versions with and without music. And, if you're an old-school Fireplace video enthusiast, there are a number of DVD and Blu-ray versions that you can buy. From extended cuts of the original 60-minute film to an edition featuring holiday music, and even a romantic moods version, presumably for taking the cozy to the next level. In a fun twist, Fireplace for Your Home's unexpected popularity on Netflix has led to all kinds of tributes to the soothing videos, including Netflix's own tongue-in-cheek trailer for the series.
This winter, sparks will fly when a pile of wood meets its destiny. The triumphant return of Fireplace for Your Home.
And there have been good-natured, equally tongue-in-cheek reviews of the videos, such as this one posted by a YouTuber named Kevin Rosmer.
Okay, moving on, we're going to talk about the Fireplace for Your Home Classic Edition. At 36 minutes, 28 seconds, you get this big climax where the wood topples, but aside from that, the wood just sits there and burns. And after that climax, it just kind of fizzles out, a bit like the last third of Goodfellas.
But I have to say that, if you think that by seeing one Fireplace video you've seen them all, you're shortchanging the cinematic vision and marketing flair of the man who lovingly brings these heartwarming videos of fireplaces from his home to yours.
My name is George Ford. I'm the creator of Fireplace for Your Home and also other video ambient titles.
George Ford is low-key and warm, which is to say, not all that different from all the fires he's filmed over the years. As it turns out, he's also quite the entrepreneur. Based in Washington State, and now in his mid-50s, George found success in a wide range of business ventures well before his first Fireplace video was just a spark in his eye.
So I had a very unique career. I had the opportunity to go the college route or just jump right in. And I jumped right into an electronics company. The company was called Radio Shack. And I really enjoyed my time there and helping other professionals and consumers get the right parts that they needed to make it work. And in about 2004, I decided to leave and open my own electronic type cellular phone stores. And while I did that, I had this crazy idea to teach birds how to talk, parrots and canaries how to sing, and parakeets how to say something, because who knew that there were 16 million bird owners in just the US alone. And I never even knew it at the time. And I created some CDs. PetSmart got a hold of it. PetSmart's first order was like $50,000 back in 2004, 2005. And that kind of set me off with some financial dollars that I could reinvest in the pet company. And pretty soon I came up with a crazy idea like, hey, let's have an entertainment DVD for cats. It's just like, that's ridiculous, right? And back then it was really even more ridiculous. And one day I'm filming it and we brought in all these mice and it was like in a big box and we had a couple of cameras set up and I'm realizing it's like I'm a reality show for rodents. So it's just, you can't make this stuff up.
George then expanded his pet video empire to dog and parrot DVDs, while growing his collection of retail stores to 20 locations. But it was a childhood memory of a holiday TV program called the Yule Log that stoked his interest in filming fireplaces himself.
I always enjoyed watching this Yule Log that was on Christmas Day. It was WPIX, and I looked it up and they had invented that way back in like 1966. So somebody had the genius back then to film a fire. And it was only like a 3-minute loop, or even less than that maybe. So it just continued. So you're just kind of waiting for something to change, but it never changes. So then I got the idea of like, okay, so what would be the perfect fireplace? If I was to redo that, how would I do it with the latest technology? And that became this 2-year project that consumed me, breathing that night and day for 2 years.
Yeah, I want to backtrack a bit. So you went from having no video experience and no bird experience and no cat experience to diving in and making those videos. I mean, was that an easy transition for you?
It was not easy at all. I didn't know anything about the details of filmmaking with the exception of what I'd learned at a previous job, an electronics job like Radio Shack. So I only had consumer experience. And then I just started to learn and read and watch YouTube videos. And it was hard because there are so many different variables that go into filmmaking, the different settings on a camera, the different temperature of lights, what works best with the shutter speed that you're using, just this long array of details that it's so hard to portray in just telling somebody that, because the farther you go, the deeper it is, and there's just really no bottom. So I really admire people that are creative and that do filmmaking. When I started the Fireplace project, I had hired people to come and film it. And I was coaching them more because I was ahead of them a little bit on the commercial side. So that's when I decided, hey, I'm just going to completely do it on my own, film it myself.
And when you started making the Fireplace videos, was your goal to sell them as DVDs or to sell them to TV stations? What was the plan?
Yeah, so what I wanted to do was get it out to, I had this crazy idea that everyone's going to be watching this worldwide at Christmas, and it's going to be in super clear quality. And just then it was these HD TVs coming out, right? 1080p. And that was the new thing. And I was hoping that it was going to catch on. And the first year or two, it didn't catch on. And I even remember sending some DVDs along with a 1-year agreement to public access stations, like 100 of them across the United States that just, hey, play this Fireplace on Christmas Day if you want. And here's a 1-year agreement that it's completely free, just to share it with the world. And I think I only had like one station that did it, and that's all.
Huh. And what year was this, roughly? What timing?
That was, I'm going to say 2007, 2008. And then along came 2009, and then I got a couple of big breaks in that time frame.
And what were those?
So one of them was a large satellite company that has a pay-per-view model. And I approached everyone at one time, and everyone turned me away, of course, because the whole ambient television marketplace wasn't even created yet. And I was pitching at that time a crazy idea to have, and hey, instead of watching just football or baseball or basketball, when you have friends over at your house, you're going to be playing this Fireplace, and your customers are going to love this. And they were like, no. And again, the ambient category didn't exist. So I pitched this whole ambient side of this creativity, of this background on your television that was really going to catch on. And everyone said no. So this satellite company I spoke with, I got a hold of the vice president's secretary, and I begged her to let me send her some samples of the DVDs that I created. And I said, here's a whole bunch. Take them home, try them out, share them with your friends. And if you like it, give me a call back or email me. And if you don't like it, just tell me that too, and I'll leave you guys alone. Well, a couple of days later, she called me back and she goes, I love it, George. My friends love it. I'm going to tell the vice president to give you a couple of minutes on the phone. And so I got it on a satellite provider. And from there, it went crazy. So we launched it right at Thanksgiving. And then the first weekend it was on, they called me and said, George, you're the number one title on our satellite. You're beating out all the movies. And I was like, oh, that's just great. That's just exactly what I wanted. And they said, do you have this in 3D? And here's where I'll admit I lied. Because I said, yes, I've got it in 3D. They said, when can you get it to us? And I'm like, 4 days from now. And they're like, great. As long as it's by this next weekend, we'll take it.
So that was for people who really wanted to be in the fire or something? I mean, 3D is not something I would have thought of.
Right? And I didn't know anything about 3D filmmaking either. Back then, it was all those 3D television sets were coming out. And it was just that craze. Remember, it was just year over year over year of 3D. And so I rented a camera it was a really expensive camera, like $25,000 camera. And then I had to pay this like $1,500 insurance policy to cover it. And then I had the rent on it. And I filmed the first 3D fireplace. And then the fireplace itself that I recorded was in 4K. So it was the first in 4K as well. So it was pretty cool. And then the whole month of December went through. The satellite company gave me just a crazy deal, a very generous offer. I think because they didn't think it was going to be so great. So per view. And then that gave me a big amount of money to be able to get to the next steps.
So I want to switch gears for a bit and ask you some technical questions. First of all, as a video producer, which is harder to work with, animals or fire? I mean, I imagine it's fire because animals can at least be trained.
I think so. The secret behind the animal training that I found out that I didn't love to hear, it's when you go to a circus, the elephant will stand on its front two legs for a peanut, right? And you got to say, what does it take to get an elephant to do that? And it takes a hungry elephant. And I didn't love that part. You got to keep food away from them for 4 or 5 hours. Even then, I thought that was a little inhumane, but that's the animal training business that's kind of a little scary. The fire, though, was obviously absolutely unpredictable. And I was weighing wood. I was seeing the depth of the wood, the thickness of the wood. I was splitting it. I was drying it. I figured out this certain type of wood that I was able to get a good quantity of, which was Canadian fir. And I discovered which way the fire would burn, and I needed it to burn from the center outwards because so many times I'd created these fireplaces that didn't burn correctly, and I'd set up the camera, I'd set up all of these variables. And so many times too, you get the camera too close to the fire, then you melt the front of the camera lens, the plastics, right? So it's hot. You don't want it too far back because then you're zooming in. But the way the fireplace burned was incredibly hard to figure out. So yeah, good question.
And you're also taking things like smoke and crackling into account?
I am, right? So bark is a great way to get a little smoke. So I wanted some smoke, but I didn't want this haunted mansion Scooby-Doo style fireplace. I wanted this bright and cheery, well-lit fire. And so couldn't have too much bark, but I had to have a little crackle. So I needed some wood that had a little sap in it. And it's almost like you want to put maple syrup. And I'm not saying I did that, but it was something that crossed my mind to go buy maple syrup and spread it on the wood. So then when it burned, you'd get this crackling sound of this dried maple syrup, which is crazy to think about, right? Just crazy.
A little bit, but there's a method to your madness, I suppose. I'm realizing that you'd probably be great to go camping with. I mean, the campfire would be a done deal.
I'm pretty good at making fires now, yeah, so thanks. Yeah, I can make them pretty quick and make them probably burn for a long time. I told a story when I was really young. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years old. We lived in this really old home, beautiful ranch home built in 1892. And it had this furnace down in the basement that was really scary. And I remember my dad teaching me how to stoke the furnace so the wood would burn, would keep us warm all night. He showed me a lot of little secrets.
Yeah. And who knew how they would be used someday?
Yeah, you never know. You can't even think of it. One thing just leads to another.
Uh-huh. And I think I read somewhere that to make your first videos, you made sure your family wasn't in the house at the time. What was the thinking behind that choice?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The noise, you start this fireplace and you can't do it in the daytime because there's creaks and cracks, maybe a car driving by. This one morning I did a fireplace. I hired this production team to come out to help me do it, which was a complete failure. And there's this crazy like blue jay and it was calling, caw, caw, caw. And I'm like, what is going on? And the microphone that I was using was picking up everything. So all these fireplaces that I ended up filming were at nighttime in the dead of night from midnight to 3 or 4 a.m. And when they didn't go right, I'd have to let the fire die down, burn itself out. Then I had to clean the ashes up, put those outside, right? Because they were still hot. And then take the time and build a whole new fireplace with wood and everything, and then try again. So you get a couple of attempts a night. It's a long night, just a few hours of sleep for a couple of years.
Yeah. So lest anyone think that this is just you easily, cranking out these videos, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot behind the scenes, and that's where I got to give props to filmmakers, directors, producers, the people that just work these incredibly long hours.
How come you didn't ask the blue jay to leave? I mean, you know how to talk to birds.
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's the food reward system. It's like throw some peanuts out, right? To keep them quiet. So yeah, good point.
Once George had something to shop around, he began knocking on Netflix's door, starting around 2010. And he didn't take no for an answer.
With Netflix, I continued to send them samples and just ask for a time where I could either chat on the phone or send an email to the buyer. And, I kept sending samples once every couple of weeks or once every month. And when the buyer did get a hold of me, he basically first said, okay, stop sending samples because my office is full with your samples. I got every package because I would dress up the little box and I did a few things just to get noticed. It was all in fun, but it was all in hey, try us out. And the buyer at Netflix, he was so honest. I really appreciated him. His name was Ian. And I think Ian was careful enough to say, hey, we're really taking a chance here because this could make my career be a zero or a hero. And I love that zero hero philosophy because it's like, man, if this really fails, it's going to be bad. But right when it got onto Netflix, it blew up. And that's the rest of the story, right?
And it's on Amazon as well for streaming?
So it's not on Amazon at this time. And I think it's coming back now. The person that I was working with at Amazon had moved on. And that happens frequently with platforms. Amazon went to a non-ambient category. So what happened was, I think, honestly, I broke Amazon a little bit. Because at one point, one of the things that came up was they keep track of your minutes that you've streamed. And this one short period of time, I think it was a week or two, the viewers had viewed Fireplace 29 million minutes was the number. And so, and then you had to think about the streaming fees and their servers and everything. And so then they just went one day it all just turned off. It's like, no more ambient content. So I don't know if that's good or bad. And I'm trying to get it on for customers. And of course, customers that bought it back then that paid the $3.99 or the $4.99 just to buy it outright, they can still watch it. So I'm still working with trying to get a hold on to somebody in Amazon that'll take it back. But the DVDs sell like crazy on Amazon. So they're just, it's wild.
I like that you brought Amazon to its knees. That's really funny.
Yeah, I don't think I was their most popular person. However, I did get a private tour of inside the Seattle Amazon. And when I went in there, they had this party going on one of their floors, and they had my Fireplace playing. And most of the people in Amazon were just when I went were kids, and I'm old. So they're like 22 to 30, and it's like this crepe paper. It's like, sixth grade, high school, junior high and stuff going on. And then there's the fireplace is burning, and they didn't know I was coming, of course. So it was right around the holidays. So that was pretty cool.
With all the success of the Fireplace for Your Home videos, George is still surprised by some of the ways in which he's gotten validation for all of the hard, smoky work he's put into making them.
The other thing that really surprised me at the start was the amount of Instagram messages that I received from college students that said, and they were genuine. This one group kind of started like this little club, and they were following me pretty close and posting a lot on my thing. And they said, hey, George, I couldn't go home for Christmas this year. I'm stuck in the dorms, and your fireplace really helped me get through that. And when I really want to study, I'm using it to have it on in the background instead of something that's going to distract me. And then it was like, wow, that's really cool. And so thank you for that. And I'd send them notes, but I also sent them some photos, 8x10 signed photos, which were pretty hilarious. Then their friends picked up that. And then pretty soon there's a little bit of a cult following on YouTube. And it was the whole, who is George Ford? And so I have to apologize that when you watch Fireplace for Your Home, you're going to see this big, giant name created by George Ford on the title, which is completely looks like this guy's got the biggest ego in the world. Who is this guy? I was told by this marketing wizard that I know, he said, you got to really use your name, and your name is your brand. He goes, when you put your name on that screen, you wanted to make it memorable. So whatever you do that. And I'm glad I did, because then that became a whole YouTube videos that they made of who is George Ford, and all these kids and college people are doing their film projects on who is this mystery person. And it was fun. It's fun to see that. And it's all just for joy, right? So good times.
Yeah, you should take credit. I mean, you're like the Coppola of combustion.
That's a good one.
You can use that.
I know. I was going to say I might write that one down.
So I saw over the holiday period that 2 of your videos were in the Netflix top 10 for that week. And I'm wondering, was that a totally surreal moment for you, or maybe that happens every year?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. A year ago, it hit number 1 on the carousel. And so this carousel is this thing that kind of rotates around almost like a screensaver on your television. If you leave Netflix up on your TV, but you're not playing a movie, it kind of goes through this advertising screensaver thing that they created. And I'll tell you, last year, it came up like on Thanksgiving, I recall. And then it came up around Christmas and then around the New Year's. This year, I hadn't seen it during Thanksgiving, and it made me a little nervous. And so I was like, okay, I need to figure out the temperature of what's going on here, meaning are people watching it again? And then I just had to keep telling myself, yes, it's continuing to grow. It has to grow. It's this need that everybody has to have. Humanity, our survival all rotates around one thing. It's the food and shelter, right? And food and shelter is the fire. For, I don't know how many years humanoids have been on the planet, right? So you hear all kinds of different numbers on that. But it's this need for the fire. It provides warmth. It provides to cook our food, right? We use heat, all of that. And you just can't get away from this human requirement. So I was hoping, but yeah, it drove me crazy. To answer your question, it drove me crazy because I couldn't sleep. It's like, how's it doing? How's it going? And to have 2 titles in the top 5 on Netflix was really big because they're competing against each other, right? So they're cannibalizing the views. And they have a 3rd title with some Christmas music. Everyone has their own version of Christmas music. So I totally get that one is kind of on the back burner a little bit. I tried to pick decent Christmas music, but it's hard. So I had to pick Christmas music that would kind of cross all genres. That was hard to do.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly striking some chord, regardless.
Trying to pick that wide audience is tough sometimes. But with the fire, everyone needs it. Everyone has to have it. And then I got another photo just the other day from a friend of mine. And it's this 2-year-old that's just enamored with the fire. and they've got a video and they park the kit right in front of it. There were some teachers that contacted me and said that they found that when they want to do, like, let's say they want to take a half-hour break and it's just like, all right, let's all focus on your homework or study time or write your essay, that they will put the fireplace up in their classroom, and then immediately within seconds, everyone simmers down, they calm down, and then they go right to their work. And she said there's not a peep, and it just works every time. So calming, soothing, and great thing to fall asleep to. Again, going back to the humanoid need from 6 million years ago that's burned inside our brains.
Yeah. Well, clearly you've tapped into something. And I was going to ask you if you had any fun anecdotes, and it sounds like you've got quite a few at your disposal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's great to fall asleep to. So I'm happy with that myself. We have it playing full time in our house. I've set up this little digital player, and instead of the fireplace that we have in our house, I put the biggest TV I could find and crammed it in there. And then I put it on this little loop. So it just plays the fireplace 24/7, which is kind of fun.
That explains your calm nature.
Till I'm at work. Then I'm wild, right? Yeah, today I'm calm.
And then there's the question of exactly how popular George's soothing fireplace videos are on Netflix, and the secondary question of how that popularity translates to his bottom line. Do you get metrics at all from the streaming services as to how popular these videos are? And do you earn more if they reach certain levels of viewership?
Yes. So yes, and then no and no. So it's a mixed bag. There's a place online where you can find the views that Netflix has. I know that they've limited their exposure on that. And then there's other platforms like Tubi. There's YouTube. And the YouTube and Tubi are generally, those are on a per view basis. So you might get X amount of money for a view. Now they're playing ads before and after titles, that kind of stuff. Each year, while one might not help pay the bills as much, another platform does pay the bills. And that's the goal here, is just to kind of keep it going. On the backside, there's a lot of expense for the fireplace that a lot of people don't think about. And one of those is just the software it takes to continue to update the titles to the latest editing software. And then the other backside story is that I have movie studios reaching out to me, and I'm creating fireplaces and content for them as well.
Oh, how would those be used? In theaters?
Those are used like in the movies themselves. So one that I can talk about is Liam Neeson stars in this movie called Cold Pursuit. And they wanted him to go to this upscale house and have a really cool fireplace behind him as he's talking to this person. And they said it needed to be about 7 minutes, and they didn't want just any old fireplace. They wanted a real good one and high quality, so it would reproduce on the screen well. And so that's one of the titles that I am allowed to talk about, which is pretty cool. The other ones ask me not to talk about them, and I'm absolutely fine with that.
So one last question for you. What is next for you in the ambient video genre? Maybe clouds moving across the sky, or watching a pot of soup boil? I mean, I feel like the possibilities are pretty endless.
Right? They are. Or like the fan that you need it in the summertime, that's just a blowing fan at your face, right? So I do have a couple, and this year it's going to be chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
And we all know where you got that idea.
Right? Exactly. Now I just need to try to license that audio, which is going to be another big cost. But I don't know if I can pull that one off or not yet, but we're trying.
Yeah, it won't be cheap, I would think.
No.
And do you have competition in this space? Are there other people filming fireplaces?
There is a lot of competition. All of a sudden, it just came out of nowhere. Really, there wasn't anything when I started. And once I did some interviews and appearances, and a couple of the newspapers picked it up, and local broadcast stations picked it up. So there's a lot of people doing the fireplace. The challenge I would give them would be, don't just build a fire and film it, build a fire with purpose and film it. It can't be just 3 minutes. It can't be 2 minutes in a loop or a 1 minute loop. It's got to be a real fire from start to finish, and it needs to be framed right and work on focus and use the right wood. And you don't want to make a cartoon fireplace. I don't think anyone wants to watch a cartoon fireplace too much. It wants to be the real thing. And so tons of copycats out there right now, which is great. And I'm all for that. I would challenge to just keep the standards really high.
As clearly you have.
Thank you.
Well, George, thank you so much for sharing this story of your journey as a fiery filmmaker of sorts, and congratulations on all the unlikely success, which, given our love of comfort and coziness, maybe isn't so unlikely at all. This has really been fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on the show.
All right, take care.
Okay, you got it. We'll see you. Yep, bye-bye.
Bye. Well, they say that where there's smoke, there's fire. And apparently, where there's fire, there can be heat in the form of debate. George Ford's Fireplace for Your Home series clearly has many fans, but there's at least one fireplace video enthusiast who's dedicated himself to keeping the fire burning when it comes to the original WPIX Yule log presentation. For the past 20 years or so, New Jersey resident Lawrence Chip Arcuri has operated the Yulelog.com, a virtual tribute to the original fireplace programs created by WPIX TV in New York. His website has the history of the Yule log, frequently asked questions about the Yule log, pretty much everything Yule log. And so I thought I'd ask Chip what he thinks of the resurgence in fireplace videos. In his email back to me, he made the case for why the Yule log is the OG of fireplace videos, telling me how it was originally filmed in 1966 at the New York City mayor's residence, Gracie Mansion, and how it was reshot a few years later, in 1970, in California. Chip says, and I quote, "They were able to edit out a perfect 7-minute loop that magnificently captured the fire when it was at its roaring best. It is this iconic fireplace footage that has captured the fascination of millions since 1970. That roaring, happy, mesmerizing fire inside that festively decorated mantelpiece, complemented by the majesty of some of the greatest classic Christmas music ever recorded, is indeed the one and only WPIX Yule log. It has often been imitated, but never duplicated." So, do we have a firefight on our hands? Is this literally fighting fire with fire? I think not. Whether it's old-school offerings like the Yule log, or the state-of-the-art streamable Fireplace for Your Home videos, fireplace programs continue to burn brightly and, dare I say, offer warmth and comfort to more viewers than ever. So the next time you're flipping through channels and getting frustrated that nothing good is on, maybe a little ambient television in the form of a glowing, crackling fireplace will ease your mind. Pop Comforts is a production of me, David Peterkovsky. My thanks to George Ford of Fireplace for Your Home for our fireside chat, and to Chip Arcuri from the Yulelog.com. Music for this episode was provided by Chris Zabriskie, Blue Dot Sessions, and Ernie Francisstein. You can find the Pop Comforts webpage on Medium.com, specifically at popcomfortspodcast.medium.com, and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. On the next episode of Pop Comforts, you'll hear the story of a carpenter-turned-musician who in the 1970s launched what became a quiet revolution in music by starting a small record company that became a surprisingly big cultural force in the realm of New Age music. The story of Windham Hill Records, next time on Pop Comforts. Until then, thanks for listening.